I'll start by saying if you haven't watched my top 5 game cartridge video, you can do it by clicking this link. Number 5. Okay, don't burn me on the stake for this, but number 5 spot goes to the N64's cartridges. Now it may well have been the choice to make the N64 a cartridge-based system that cost Nintendo dearly against the PlayStation, although I get the feeling it was a battle they were always going to lose. Every empire must fall and all that. But I don't think the carts were much cop either. I will confess they do have a satisfying chunkiness to them, but the lack of any end labels makes knowing what each one is when placed in a drawer a major annoyance. And as someone who owns a lot of these things, I am one of the biggest victims of this oversight. Sure, the European and Japanese SNES carts had no end labels, but at least the US versions did. For the N64 we all had to suffer. Many system cartridges are admittedly guilty of this end label sin, but the fact that Nintendo, who held off using CDs for its home console games for so long, falls foul of such an obvious error is almost unforgivable. Number 4. It may have been an incredibly poor man's Game Boy and faded into obscurity in a flash, but the Watara Supervision still had no excuse for cartridges with such a woeful design. Leaving the connector part of the games completely exposed, these make me shudder just to look at them. Two systems that were notably guilty of the same crime were the Magnavox Odyssey and the Virtual Boy, but the former was the first console to boast interchangeable games, and the Virtual Boy's carts did at least have protective sleeves. Add in the fact that the labels are almost all universally bland, and you have a set of cartridges that are far from super. Vision. Number 3. When cartridges for a system go through more than one redesign, you get the impression the people behind the console didn't really know what they were doing, and in no case is that point better demonstrated than with the Atari Lynx. The fact that every card design still had obvious flaws perhaps says even more. The first batch of Lynx games were sold in this flat design, which actually made removing them from the system a struggle. I can manage it though, of course, because I'm amazing. Then they had ridge and curved lipped versions which fixed this oversight, but they still suffer from 2 flaws in my opinion. One of these is possibly minor, as the connector part feels exposed. But I've not had a Lynx game break on me just yet, so this is perhaps not something to worry about too much. But my main annoyance is that the cart artwork faces into the machine, making seeing what title is in the system impossible. This is something quite common with portable games of course, but it's still quite painful to see such a huge space where artwork could go not being used. Just give me some indicator of what the game is, even if it's only a small section like these Game Boy carts. On a side note, is it sad that I can tell what some of these Game Boy games are from these smidgens of artwork? Maybe I've wasted a bit too much of my life looking at game cartridges. I need some time to think.
How can the light that burns so brightly suddenly burn so pale?
Number 2. Whereas the Mega Drive claimed number 2 on my top 5 list, here its predecessor gets second worst spot. And it's hard to imagine two systems having such a different approach to cartridge design. Whereas the Mega Drive hosted an almost uncontrolled cartridge cornucopia, the Master System carts look like they come from a dystopian future where individuality is frowned upon and stamped out. Yes, the boxes for the system were bad. I mean, what the hell is this? But at least they were occasionally unintentionally amusing. The carts on the other hand all had this stock red and black design. I'm telling you, this graph paper style was a great choice. Whoever thought that was a good idea should get a raise. I'm not even kidding. Find me that person and I'll give them a 5p piece. They deserve it. So much. Anyway, even the rare examples which strive away from the standard colours are dull as well. The real irony, of course, is that the original Master System could run carts and these nifty cards, which actually had artwork on them. But guess which one of the two won out? These cartridges are boring, they're dull, and I don't like them. And number 1 is... I imagine you saw this coming. One of the most obvious entries for this list from the get-go, the Jaguar cartridge is a design that really does make you question whether Atari were deliberately designing every element of the 64-bit system badly as some kind of elaborate prank. The main design faux pas of the Jaguar carts is obviously this tubular handle that sits on the top of each one. Although its aim to make the games easier to remove from the system is admirable, it's hardly a necessary addition and ends up looking like each cart has a hideous growth attached to them. Now I know I put the Odyssey carts in the best of list for having a similar feature, but my reasons for this are as follows. Handles are quite cool. Weird sausage growths aren't. Add in the fact they're awkward to stack and have no end labels, and the Jaguar has carts that are hard to beat in terms of woeful design. So there we are. Atari's claimed top spot on both my cartridge design lists. Quite the achievement. Please do let me know if I've missed a kart design you despise in the comments section below though, and I'll hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.
Ha 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 ha!